Hello, my name is Blake Keith, and today we're going to be discussing a data overview of the 6th grade Social Studies Department at Ashworth Middle School. The purpose of this overview is to get discussion going so that we can form an action plan to help identify some of the problems and solutions to these problems we have within our Social Studies Department. To tell you a little bit about Ashworth, these are our demographics. Here, as you can see, there are two clear majority groups at Ashworth, the white non-Hispanic and the Hispanic students. If you continue these trends out for the past several years, the Hispanic population has increased dramatically, and we've also seen an uptick in multiracial students. Part of this growth in the Hispanic population is we are in close proximity to Dalton, which has a huge Hispanic population, and we are essentially becoming suburban Dalton. And so a lot of the trends they see, we've seen in the past several years. Between subgroups, pretty even between male and female over the years, as you can see from these charts. Steady students with disabilities levels. ELL, which I will brag on our ELL program. Those kids are getting absolutely wonderful education. And economically disadvantaged. Now I want to go ahead and make a point on this slide that will relate to the next one. As you can see, in 2011 we had 69% economically disadvantaged, 62.7, 58. So one would think the trend has gone down, but if we compare that to our free and reduced lunch rate, we see that in 2012 we were at 74.7% as opposed to 2003 where we started at 51.7%, and then our biggest jump came during the Great Recession. You really start here. We had actually gone down and we skyrocketed back up, as I'm sure most schools did, about a 12% growth. One of the reasons that I feel that happened is the economy, obviously. If you look here, the transient rate for our school has always been around 25%. If you were to continue this back another 5 years, you'd see basically the same pattern and percentages. One of the reasons I feel, again, that this happened is the economy. A lot of jobs in the Calhoun area, Sonoraville area, even within Gordon County, are construction related or factory related. Shaw and Mohawk, several of the big carpet companies, laid off numerous people over the years due to the fact the housing market was down and carpet was not as in high demand. That has started to pick up, so it will be interesting to see in the next few years if that holds true. But another point of discussion is how can the economy affect your school? It can greatly change it. I know it's changed Ashworth a little bit as far as makeup, but as you'll see, we've tried to overcome those changes. A little more discussion here. Is there a connection between the high number of economically disadvantaged students and the high transit rate? I would say yes. Again, between that Dalton, Calhoun, Rome area of northwest Georgia, a lot of students move from place to place. If you could collect this data on where students transferred to within school systems, I'm almost positive that we would have, the Whitfield County, Floyd County, Bartow County area. Most of our kids would end up going there, if not 100%. And then what are some advantages or disadvantages of teaching in a school with fairly heterogeneous makeup? That's going to be varied for everybody. Some people would see it as a disadvantage. Some people would say, hey, it's an advantage because you're focusing on less cultural, trying to draw that kind of thing in, which not to say that we're not culturally sensitive. It's just, you have less groups. So it's something to think about, definitely. And then you also have to consider something that people don't address a lot when they look at data. What outside factors affect your school's performance? And how are you going to address these factors? Can you do anything about them? Is it something that happens outside of your school that you could change? Or is it something that you're just going to have to kind of bite the bullet on? Obviously, the overall economy we can't do a lot about, but how we respond to it, we can. Okay, so let's dig into just the 6th grade to start off with. We'll start with our big picture and work down. This is the CRCT meets and exceeds rate for all subjects. As you can see, our leading categories are reading and ELA. Our teachers are great with that. If you ever have an opportunity to come to our school, you need to see the 6th grade language arts teachers. Math has also shown tremendous gains. Our math teachers are stellar as well. Science and social studies, we're hanging in there. We're trying to get better every day, but we have shown growth. And as you can see, these numbers right here really impressed me. Those are outstanding numbers. I'm not sure how one can improve on 98%. I mean, obviously 99 or 100. That's going to be pretty tough. And that's something you need to consider when you look at data as well, is you've got to take into account how much growth you're going to have. Don't give them a 2% growth off the bat. Hey, every kid has to pass. You've got to keep your goals realistic. All right, social studies, CRCT, we start to dig by subgroup. We do male, female, student with disabilities, ELL, and economically disadvantaged. Going back to economically disadvantaged, you can see pretty decent numbers, but again, most of our kids are economically disadvantaged, so that's really kind of a moot point for our school to compare that as a data point. And you see the final numbers there. The main area of concern here is this central column, the students with disabilities. As you can see, it goes from 38% meets and exceeds to 43%. But then it drops drastically to 32. That's an 11-point change in percentile, and that's not acceptable. What other things could have caused this drastic decline? You know, you would have to research other things. And when you create data, and when you look at this as a group, you really need to look at if there's anything else. Again, this goes back to those outside factors. You can sit here and beat yourself up over it, and yes, there's an obvious need for improvement because those numbers aren't satisfactory. But is it practice? Is it pedagogy? Is it just some kind of shift? Is it something that maybe you're not allowed to do anymore? For example, they're taking away the CRCT-M test in Georgia, which social studies and science have never had, but math and English and reading have always had. So it'll be interesting in the next 5 or so years to see what kind of effect that has. Meets and exceeds by ethnicity and race. And you see some pretty squonky looking numbers here. You see good improvement amongst the multiracial groups, and then you see some tremendous downside to this. And if you take this at surface value, you read certain things. But you can't always take everything at its surface. And as I'll explain with this next slide or two, okay, you see one true thing is the growth amongst the Hispanic students. That's pretty standard, and you'll see in a moment. We have extremely small population sizes for some of our races. If I go back for just a moment, multiracial, African American, and Asian are very, very small population groups within our school, as you can recall from the demographics page. So what I've done to try and get us a better feel of where everybody is over long-term trends, and this won't work for year to year, but as a long-term data source, I've put together an average of their meets and exceeds rate. And then you have to be careful when you look at this data is think about the small sample size. I would love to go back to this slide and say, hey, we did have a 100% African American pass rate. We did have a 100% multiracial pass rate. We did, but as you're going to see, it's not that many kids over a 3-year span. So again, we're contemplating the effects of small sample size. And if you look here at the bottom, you see your end data. There's one that's cut off. It's multiracial students. Over a 3-year period, 13 multiracial students were issued the 6th grade social studies CRCT. 7 Asian students were issued the test, 14 African American, 463 white, and 142 Hispanic. So from the previous slides, you can see that this holds fairly true with the white and the Hispanic populations. If you average them out, that would be pretty close to what it is. Same for this. But you see, you get a better scope. Now, obviously, from the, let me go back 2 slides. This 0 number here, there were literally no Asian students. So what I did was I averaged 2 of them together for the years, okay? And they came out with a 65% pass rate. African Americans end up with a meets exceeds rate of 77%. Multiracial end up with a 71%. Now, these numbers give you a better goal of where everything is. So when you're talking about achievement gaps and looking at this, when you look long term, this will let you wrap your head around it a little better. That's what we had to do in our situation. Here we are, Ashworth compared to the other Gordon County middle schools. You have Sonoraville Middle School, which is another Gordon County school, and then you have Calhoun Middle School, which is a member of the Calhoun City System, which is within Gordon County. And we remain competitive. Each school seems to have gotten a year where they get to rule the roost. Okay, our year was right here in 2012. And here we are compared to our county as a whole and to the state of Georgia. And again, these are essentially Sonoraville numbers. And Ashworth right here, and we continually outperform the state, which is a good thing. But areas of caution, things we need to be aware of. The clearest need you can see from this data is the huge gap, or huge drop rather, in meets exceeds among students with disabilities. Okay, we've also had a decline overall, and while there are a number of reasons this has occurred, we have to take immediate action to better serve students with disabilities. Okay, we also saw an 11% drop amongst African American students. Again, very small sample size, but still, when you're measured and you feed her to the fire, it doesn't matter about sample size. So if we change what we're doing to help all students, that problem will take care of itself. Things of success. Ashworth continually outperforms the state in social studies CRTT. I like to brag on us, so I'm going to. We also typically outperform on average other schools in our region. Ashworth, again, has continued success from our free and reduced and economically disadvantaged students. Continued success is a big deal. We understand the environment we work in, but we don't make excuses for students. Don't make excuses in your data. You've got to hold everybody to the same standard. We've increased overall by 5 percentage points amongst all 6th graders taking the test, and our Hispanic population continues to show growth. We're awaiting the new numbers, but we expect that trend to continue. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, see me after the presentation.